Privilege this morning as the building principal here at McCaskey High School to welcome you to today's Distinguished Alumni Award Ceremony. Particular thank you for East for coming over this morning and helping us out and being part of the program. 6 years ago, when the Alumni Association got together and said that they wanted to start a Distinguished Alumni program, we thought about how to do that. And we thought, what better way to do it than to bring in the students to see what we're doing here with the Distinguished Alumni, because each and every one of the young people, well, I say that for a couple young people, younger people, sitting up here today sat out there. In fact, one of the persons here supporting one of the candidates was telling me the exact seat that he sat in during all the assemblies in his 3 years here at McCaskey. So anyway, we thought it would be a great idea to have you here and hear their message, and I'm sure when they sat here 10, 20, 30 years ago, whatever, that they never thought that they would be brought up here to be a Distinguished Alumni. Anything is possible, and that's our message to this morning. Before we officially get started, though, we'd like to have the greetings this morning by our Superintendent, Vicki Phillips. Ms. Phillips?
Good morning. On behalf of the district, I too want to thank you for these ceremonies. McCaskey pride is alive and well in this school every single day, but never more so than when we honor the rich array of alumni who've walked these halls that you now walk on a daily basis. They're an impressive group, and we're here today to honor a few of them. And as Mr. Stobbs said, who knows, in a few years you may be standing behind this podium being honored yourselves. Alumni have made to McCaskey and also to our community and the communities in which they reside. To get us started is our Master of Ceremonies, who I know needs not much introduction to you since he's spoken to you before, Mr. Dick Hawksworth, who's with the class of 1962.
It's always a pleasure for me to return to JP. I have fond memories of this fine institution, and it doesn't seem all that long ago that I was sitting out there where you are sitting now, watching programs, listening to speakers, and Gordy can remember this back in the days when we were sitting out there watching the basketball games that were played on the stage that also doubled as the gym. No matter where you will go in life when you leave McCaskey, what road you will take. And you will all take different roads. Sooner or later, you may not believe this now, because I sure didn't, but sooner or later you are going to find that road that will bring you back to McCaskey, because there is something about this institution that becomes a part of you. And believe me, McCaskey pride is a lot more than just a bumper sticker slogan. It's real. It stays with you. And when you just take a casual walk or drive down that street, you glance over and you see this fine old building, yeah, that McCaskey pride is there. This morning we are going to honor 5 of McCaskey's finest. The Distinguished Alumni Awards, built on a solid foundation of dedication to education. The J.P. McCaskey Alumni Association is proud to present the Distinguished Alumni Awards. The awards are presented each year to 5 graduates of McCaskey Boys or Stevens Girls High School. The recipients have achieved a level of stature within their profession or communities, which the students of the school district of Lancaster will want to emulate in their lives. These people are shining examples of what you can do with the education that you receive here at McCaskey. You have some fine teachers here, but they can only give you the tools. It's up to you to decide what you're going to do with them. And these 5 people took those tools, went out, not only bettered themselves, but their communities. We start this morning with Dr. J. Freeland Chryst, class of 1944. J. Freeland Chryst graduated from McCaskey during World War II, and like most American men his age, Freeland went off to war. He served his country with pride and honor as a member of the United States Navy aboard the USS Kershaw. He was awarded the Pacific Theater Battle Star. After the war, Freeland returned to Lancaster. He enrolled at Millersville University. He graduated from Millersville in 1950. He landed a job at Armstrong World Industries. Back then it was known as Armstrong Cork Company. In 1965, he founded J Advertising Sales Promotion, now known as the J Group. The J Group has 225 employees and provides services to Fortune 500 companies. Freeland has remained a loyal member of the McCaskey family. Several years ago, Friday night football became a way of life at high schools across America. J. Freeland Chryst was a driving force behind bringing Friday night football to McCaskey High School. He was the chairman of a campaign to raise $90,000 for the installation of lights at Barney Yule Stadium. For Freeland's contributions to local athletics, the Lancaster Old Timers Athletic Association presented its annual award in his honor to an outstanding member of the athletic community. And for 25 years, he served as a PIAA football official. Freeland chaired a campaign that raised $27 million for Millersville University. He created the Millersville University Athletic Football Scholarship, which provides benefits to student athletes. And among his many honors are an honorary doctorate of humane letters from Millersville, a building bearing his name at Millersville, and he's a member of the Millersville Athletic Hall of Fame. And he can now add to his honors the Distinguished Alumni Award from McCaskey High School, Dr. J. Freeland Chryst, class of 1944. And helping present the award to Dr. Chryst is Dottie Hammond, class of 1951, and president of the Alumni Association.
Hi. Good morning. What a nice voice to follow. Dick Hawksworth. Nice, deep, resonant voice. Paul Ripple showed up here this morning. He's a previous honoree. And I told him if he'd be kind enough to go home, I'd appreciate it, because I think I might be the oldest person in this auditorium. Except I look down here and I see Nick Giannopoulos. And I know he's older than I am, so. But very few. I was going to thank you very much for coming here, but I heard some of those announcements, and it's my understanding you've gotten out of many classes to come here, so I don't know if I should thank you or not. Probably taking a little nap during this time. But if an old man can talk to you briefly, I would appreciate it. And I'd like to start out first telling you thanking the people involved for this honor, and I would like to talk a little bit about our facility. You know, I think the thing that makes any school certainly has to do with the facility, the teachers, or the teachers then the facility, and of course you students, which is mentioned previously. That's what the school is all about. Your principal, Bob, he said that he welcomed people here from 10, 20, and 30 years, I think, so he did not include me. And then somebody else mentioned that, I think Dick Hawksworth mentioned something else that didn't apply to me also, but I'm here and I'm grateful for being here. You know, McCaskey's had an enormous influence on my being, and actually it has to do with some history also. I went to school across the street here at Reservoir Street, we used to call that, some other name now, and I watched this building being built. I lived in the east end of town and probably saw the first hole that was dug for this magnificent edifice. Actually, I think there's some historians here that would verify that this previously was either a formerly city dump or was used as a city dump, one or the other. But I remember the newspaper articles, or at least my parents talking about the articles, that this school would sink in 10 years. It would be the folly of all the people that put the money into this school to make it the magnificent place that it is. But do you see after, 1939? I think that's like 61 years it's still here, which is marvelous. And you are the beneficiary now of this school. The first class, I understand, was 2139 here. And I came here in 1940. Actually 41, and I graduated in 44, because I didn't flunk any grades. But I was one of the first people that come to the school, and I was going to spend a lot of time talking about this, but my daughter suggested that I do not. But I was born in the Depression, and magnificent buildings were really a thing with us. You know, we didn't take this kind of thing for granted. My mother used to send me to the theater on summer afternoons to get in the air conditioning. So when you had a building like this, it was really meaningful. It brings to mind, on my way here, I live in Ronks, if you people know where that is, a little east of here. And I saw the Amish children going to school. And I thought, I wonder if I could bring them along and show them this place. They would be as impressed as I was the first day I came. You know, their school consists of 3 buildings, a schoolroom and 2 outhouses. So we have all this. You probably have more than 1 bedroom, I suspect. When I found this building, I came through here the first time on an open house, and I noticed they had large classrooms, band room, libraries, football stadium, and this room in your recent renovation, I think, has been cut in 2. But my recollection of this room was twice as big as it is now. And of course, the snow was this deep when I went to school. So you see what time does to you. This room looked amazingly small to me when I came in here this morning. And I suspect that, do you have another facility, another auditorium in this complex? Well, that's wonderful. It's still a marvelous room, and I graduated from here. The most impressive thing when I came to this was that they had a pool, a swimming pool. I'd never been in a swimming pool in my life, other than the club I belonged to. That was the waterworks, you know, in the creek. So to come to school and be able to get into a swimming pool was just unbelievable. And of course, in those days, I'm going to get into our teachers. Dave Herr was one of our wonderful teachers. As Dick mentioned previously, the war was on when I graduated from high school. And the last 2 years I was in school here, the swim class was devoted almost 100% to taking the Navy test, which was a test that lasted the whole school year, as I recall. And it amounted to a lot of horrible things, you know, like sticking your head underwater for 1 minute, you know, swimming the 2 lengths of the pool without coming up and that type of thing. So this school has meant a lot to me. Let me talk about these teachers. I'd like to tell you some things. Again, I don't want to get too historic, but they're part of my life here at the school. And I mentioned quickly Sarah Bittner, Helen Little, Woody Spanable, and of course Paul. I know you remember those names, and I'm sure you do too, Nick. Sarah Bittner was my English teacher, and Helen Little was a history teacher. And I'll tell you something about teachers that can be confirmed by the older people here, but might come as a surprise to younger people, including maybe your superintendent. You know, no female could teach in the Lancaster City school system who was married. So So up until 1941, the only teachers we ever had were all maids. And I did feel that that was an advantage for the simple reason that they thought we were their children. It was a marvelous experience we had with those teachers. And I tell you quickly that when I went to the South Pacific, I repeatedly got letters from both Sarah Pittner and Helen Little. As a matter of fact, I received 2 letters from one each from them 2 weeks prior to the invasion of Okinawa. And I was there. Of course, Woody and Boyd Spano were legendary in this town. They were great disciplinarians. They taught me a great deal about discipline. McCaskey was one great school, facility-wise and teachers. Maybe the best in southeastern Pennsylvania, certainly, and maybe even the state of Pennsylvania. Certainly their facility was just outstanding, and it remained all these years. They've asked me to tell you what McCaskey did for me. I think it contributed to my learning and maturing, along with a wonderful beginning of life of learning. It taught me how to live a happy, rewarding, and successful life. Teachers helped me create a positive attitude. They molded my approach to making right decisions. And if I may, I would like to give you, in closing, a few personal admonishments. One is learn how to make right decisions. They're so important in your lifetime. I would submit to you, and I steal this from a book of life's instructions, for an example, when you choose somebody to be your soulmate and your spouse, when you choose this life's mate carefully, you better do it carefully. For this is one decision will become 90% of all your happiness and your misery. It's an important decision. Choose to take chances. Don't worry about failure. I think that's an important admonition in life. When you stop and think of Hank Aaron and Babe Ruth, I know for sure in Ruth's case, he struck out 2 times as many times as he hit home runs. That's failure, striking out. And success is hitting the home run. Choose to try to get an energetic, positive attitude. It's so much in life. It's everything in life. And you know, it amazed me, the adjectives that are attached to that word in the thesaurus and in the dictionary, as to how many adjectives, 50% of them are positive and 50% of them are negative. And I would admonish you to get the positive. It's everything in life. People can read your attitude. It's the very first impression you ever give anybody is your attitude. It's really gotten so bad that now we describe attitude as to say, this guy has an attitude. You people, excuse me, of all people, would understand that that is negative if you have an attitude. I don't think anybody ever described you as having an attitude when it's something good in that regard. Let me close by saying this. I'd like to read this quotation. You are very special people. Each one of you have special sparkle unique to you alone. Make the very most of that sparkle. Try again. Never give up. You may not succeed at everything, but when you find that special something that was meant for you, you will be the very best at it that anyone can be. Thank you.
Thank you, Freeland. And Freeland has a guest with him today, his daughter, Dana. Where's Dana? Is she here? Back here? And before we continue, I want to want to introduce some other distinguished members of our audience this morning. We're going to start with members of the Distinguished Alumni Awards Committee. And I ask each committee member who is here to stand and please hold your applause until the end, if you would. Lauren Olam, Iris McRae, Nick Giannopoulos, Joe Stokes, Nelson Polite, not with us this morning, John W. Luce, and Jim Apple. And this person, Susan Garofalo, would you please stand, Susan, here in the red. This woman is a saint, I want to tell you, because without Susan, we would not be up here on this stage this morning and you would not have a distinguished alumni program. This woman has spent tireless hours making sure this program not only gets off the ground, but each year it gets better. Susan, from all of us of the McCaskey family, thank you so much for the time that you have given J.P. McCaskey High School. And we also have with us some members of the Distinguished Alumni Award inductees, I guess we could call them, past inductees, past members of the family who have received the award. And would you please stand and again hold your applause. With us is a member of the Pennsylvania State House of Representatives, the Honorable Jerry Schuler, class of '52, Ethel Gillard, class of '29, Dr. Paul Ripple, class of 1940, Barbara Valvanis, class of '45, Dr. Jim Argiers, class of '49, Buddy Glover, class of 1967, Mr. Nelson Polite, President of Lancaster City Council, class of 1941, and Katie Rogers Butcher, class of 1965. Distinguished alumni. And joining the distinguished alumni this morning is Katie Buck True. She came to Lancaster by way of Baltimore. She graduated from McCaskey in 1958. As mother of 3 sons and stepmother to 3 other boys, Katie decided the growing problem of drug abuse among America's young people was something that she, as a parent, could not ignore. She founded Kids Saving Kids at Enfield High School. The nationally recognized program trains high school students to present drug education and prevention programs to elementary students. Katie joined First Lady Nancy Reagan and others as a board member of the National Federation of Parents for a Drug-Free Youth. She received national recognition with the 1994 Parent Award at the World Drug Conference. She has written a drug education manual. In 1992, Katie entered the political arena when she was elected to the Pennsylvania House of Representatives, joining another McCaskey graduate, Jerry Schuler. Katie represents the 37th District of Lancaster County. She's currently the chairwoman of the House Subcommittee on Drug and Alcohol Abuse. Her legislation, which became law, includes an income tax checkoff for breast cancer research, which raised nearly $300,000 in its first year, and a pair of bills aimed at providing better protection for abused children. Katie is honoring her pledge to voters of her district not to seek more than 4 terms in the State House, but she wants to remain in public office. She is the Republican candidate for the Auditor General of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and she is a member of the McCaskey family. Katie Buck True.
Good morning, everybody. Don't be afraid. I know politicians, you think we're going to talk a long time, but I promise I won't do that. I just really want to tell all of you what an absolute honor it is for me to be standing here on the stage where I graduated from in 1958, June 11th. Never forgot the date, 1958. And the pride that I have and being part of the McCaskey family has stayed with me since the day I walked out of this auditorium. It's really kind of hard to explain to people that have not gone to McCaskey. My husband is from Delaware. When we moved back to Lancaster in 1973, we started running into a lot of people that I went to school with here. I lived in the city. I lived on East Clay Street. And he said, boy, you people are really a tight group, aren't you? And I said, yes, absolutely. There was a lot of pride in being a McCaskey in the 50s when I went to Lancaster Township. I was in junior high over at what is now Wheatland, and you got to pick where you wanted to go to high school, and there was no question that I was going to go to J.P. McCaskey High School. My children, because when we moved back, we lived in the Hempfield area, and they went to Hempfield, and I have to tell you that when McCaskey plays Hempfield, I had a really hard time staying on the Hempfield side when the McCaskey band started to play the fight song. And one of my stepsons played football for Hempfield back in the late 70s. And I have to confess, at halftime, I went and sat on the McCaskey side. I just couldn't stand it. I feel that what they asked us to say was what McCaskey meant to me when I went here, and I guess I'd say McCaskey was an anchor for me. I was kind of a not-so-special kid, just an average kid. I guess I could have probably done better, but I didn't do too badly in school. I just really enjoyed the fellowship and the respect that I was taught here really guided me through my life. And everything I've done since I left here has been guided by what I learned here at McCaskey. And I guess I should say, as far as what it means to me now, I did not have the good fortune to go to college, so I am not a college graduate. Times were not there for me to do that in 1958. It's one of my regrets, and someday maybe I'll even get to go back. But nevertheless, when people talk to me now, particularly my opponent just suggested a couple weeks ago for the state race of Auditor General that perhaps I was not suited to run statewide because I did not go to college. And I was very proud to say, I was on a talk show, that I think I'm very well suited because everything I've learned, I had a J.P. McCaskey High School education, and it has suited me just fine. Thank you very much. And I think it'll get me into statewide office, and I couldn't be prouder. So I hope you can all keep that with you when you leave here. Remember it always. I'm 17 when I graduated, and I am 59 years old now, and I feel about McCaskey today just like I did when I was 17 years old. Carry it with you always. It'll always be there for you. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Katie. Gordy Kraft, and I know Gordy is a familiar face to a lot of you out there. Gordy was a classmate of Katie, class of '58. Gordy comes from a true McCaskey family. His mother, Anna McMillan Kraft, graduated from what was then Stevens High School in 1929. Gordy's father, Edward Kraft Sr., was assistant principal of McCaskey from 1955 to 1969. I remember him very well, Gordy. I graduated in '62, and Mr. Kraft was responsible for getting me an interview at Armstrong Pork Company. Gordy's wife, Yvonne Leggett Kraft, graduated from McCaskey in 1959. His 6 brothers and sisters also graduated from McCaskey. Gordy and Yvonne's daughter, Heidi Kraft Cody, served on the Lancaster School Board from 1991 to 1999, and I think that Gordy's wife, Shirley, Mayor Kraft, class of '57, and his wife, Heidi Kraft Cody, is here this morning. Yeah, it's been a long day already, and it's only a little after 8. Are they with us this morning? Yes, right down front. And Gordy and Yvonne also have two sons, G. Douglas and Zachary. Now, while at McCaskey, Gordy lettered in swimming, football, and track. He was co-captain of the 1957 Central Penn Championship football team. After graduating from McCaskey, Gordy went to Franklin Marshall College, where he lettered in the same three sports. And you still hold the record for javelin. No, you don't hold that anymore? That was wrong. All right, scratch that. Doesn't hold the record for javelin. That's out. Oh, we were going to give you another honor, Gordy. All right. You have any record standing? No? We're going to have to think about this award now. Gordy graduated from F&M with a degree in math. He began teaching and coaching at his alma mater, McCaskey, in 1962. That was the year I graduated, left here. I don't think we should read anything into that, should we? Okay. Gordy came and I left. Gordy continued his education. He received a master's degree from Temple University. He also studied with Lafayette College and became certified to teach math and Russian language. While at McCaskey, Gordy was an assistant football coach for 32 years. In 1967, he became assistant track and field coach. He took over the head coaching duties of the track team in 1970. He remained head track and field coach until his retirement in 1997. He also served as head coach of the swimming and diving team for the 1965, 66, and 70 seasons. But let's go back to Gordy's track teams. For the 28 years that Gordy was head coach of the boys track team, the boys track teams had a record of 272 wins and 14 losses. For 17 years that Gordy was head coach of the girls track teams, they had a record of 104 wins, 68 losses. And while head coach, Gordy's boys track team brought to McCaskey 11 district championships. His girls teams made the city of Lancaster proud by bringing to McCaskey 2 state titles and 4 district champions. Gordy has also served as a PIAA swimming and diving and track and field official. He's past president of the Lancaster County Officials Club. In 1999, Gordy was honored with the prestigious Lancaster Sports Writers and Sportscasters George W. Kirkner Award for outstanding contributions to sports in Lancaster County. And this is quite a week for Gordy because later this week he will be inducted into the Susquehanna Valley chapter of the Pennsylvania Sports Hall of Fame. Gordy retired from McCaskey in 1997 after 35 years as a teacher, a coach, an advisor, a friend, and inspiration to thousands of McCaskey students. Gordy Kraft has touched so many lives, and he continues to do so. You will see Gordy Kraft at McCaskey track meets with the stopwatch around his neck and often an arm around an athlete, student athlete, offering advice. And that little touch that Gordy has always given to the students here at McCaskey High School. He now joins the proud ranks of McCaskey's distinguished alumni. Ladies and gentlemen, Gordy Kraft, class of 50.
Well, everybody has taken their time plus mine, so I don't have too much time to speak, which is probably good for you because I'm not the best of speakers. I might have done some of the things he said, but that's not the same as standing up and talking. There's a difference. But Mr. Stahl, Bill, it was a president of our school board here, right? And I didn't recognize her at first, but Mrs. Kaufman's two sons were on our track team and swim team, and actually one, Pete Kaufman, writes for the sports, for the Intel. Pete Kaufman does the sports, that's her son. McCaskey Brad, honored guest. You already met my wife and daughter there. It's really a special honor to be here. I certainly don't feel I belong here, but here I stand. And I'd like to thank the Alumni Association for picking me. I don't know, they saw something in me, I guess, that I should have this award. It's very humbling. I'd like to especially thank Mrs. Garafola, who I know personally puts in a lot of time for McCaskey, promoting McCaskey, and organizing this event and many other things that she does. And when she sent us letters announcing that we were going to be inducted today, she asked us to speak, as I said, what McCaskey meant to me as a student and what it means to me today. And I'll keep it short. I think, and I hope you feel the same. First of all, it meant a lot to me as an academic end of things. They referred to teachers. They were very special to me. And learning, preparing me for going to college. When I went to college, I went to F&M. When I went there as a freshman, I found that I was better prepared than most students coming from New York, New Jersey, wherever. I was well prepared. And I hope you appreciate that when you're here now, when you leave, the opportunities that you have, whether you go to college or not. One of my brothers was in the vocational program and became an auto mechanic. He had that opportunity. So whatever you decide to do, take advantage of the academic end of things here at McCaskey. And that meant a lot to me. It means more to me now when I look back at it than it did at the time, perhaps. But I know there was a lot of homework. I hope you all do your homework. An hour or so a night was not unusual homework. And we didn't like that, but it meant a lot that we had to do that. That was one of the things. I think that was number one. The teachers, the academics, the tests, all the challenges. That meant a lot to me. I needed that in order to succeed, because it'd be easy to be lazy and do nothing if you weren't challenged. And so that was important. That means a lot. Sports meant a lot. And activities. I was in sports, 3 sports here. Fortunately, when we were here, we were members. I was a member of the football team that was the Central Penn champions. I was on the swimming team and the relay team that won the state championship. I was on the track team that was undefeated and district champion. So I was very, very fortunate. But that meant a lot to me, to be able to go out and represent McCaskey with my teammates. So, and other activities. I was involved with the Vedette, and we supported each other a lot. Musicals, my wife was involved a lot with the music programs and all those things. So that meant a lot, to be able to have the opportunity to participate in whatever you wanted to do. Get involved. Just don't go home at 3 o'clock or 2:52 or whatever your excuse is. Be involved. And get things. And I know a lot of you are, and I know there's a lot of students that aren't here because they're on the band trip or the gospel choir, but they're involved. It'll mean much more to you, the school, if you get involved and do things. It's a little late for some of the seniors, perhaps, that aren't involved, but for you juniors, and maybe there's some sophomores here too, get involved. That means a lot. You meet a lot of friends, and you have a lot of good memories. And the third thing, and I think in some ways, the most important thing to me, what McCaskey meant, were my friends. Some of them were on the sports teams, and some of them are still my best friends. A lot of them weren't. Katie was a friend. We weren't as close and as tight as some people, but we're still friends. That's great. Where's Mr. Myers? Would you stand up? Some of you know Mr. Myers? He was in my class in high school. He's still teaching. Although he's retiring this year, class of 58. we're very proud. And I know, like Buddy's class 67, that was a great class. We're very proud of that class. And people, it's people, mean a lot. And I think that's what you got to appreciate. The person sitting next to you, around you, your teachers, the staff, you know, your fellow students. That is the number one important thing. You know, to get along together, as Mr. Chryst said, about an attitude, a good attitude, and you know, there are people perhaps that you don't maybe see eye to eye with, but still, you know, they're relationships that you establish for your whole life. Every 5 years, our class has a reunion. Great time. And I hope that you're planning for that in the future. And I hope you all attend. Some people don't go to the reunions, maybe I don't know why, but a lot of people do, and it's great. You know, and it's one of those things that, being from McCaskey, it means a little bit more than just from Hempfield or Manham Township, in my opinion, because you know you came from good roots. Excuse me, I'm fighting this cold. But you know, you have to have a lot of pride, personal pride, family pride, McCaskey pride. They all go together. There's a lot of people in this auditorium, including you students, who've had brothers and sisters, maybe parents that went to school here. And we're very proud of that. And I want you to be as proud. So, again, I'd like to excuse me, thank you very much for this. I tell you, teaching here and coaching here for 35 years didn't seem like that long, you know, and it was great. It was great, and a lot of students, you know, he mentioned, Dick Hawksworth mentioned some of the accomplishments the track teams and sports teams had that I coach with. Well, I was part of that, but, you know, there was a lot of work, a lot of hard work, a lot of athletes put through to get there. And it wasn't just because of me, it's because of McCaskey. You know, and you can be very proud of what they've done, and it is on top, it's on your responsibility to continue that hard work and, you know, and doing the best that you can do. And I really do appreciate it. I'm going to sit down. I know I went more than my 3 or 4 minutes. I was going to have someone time me, but I didn't, so here I am. But anyhow, thank you very much. I'm going to hang around during the day, maybe see some of my former teachers that we used to teach together. I miss them a lot, and maybe I'll stop in some pre-cal class and give some notes to you. Okay? Thanks.
Thank you, Gordy. And I know this was a special morning for Gordy because a good friend of his and a former teacher of McCaskey, Bernie Santinello, who also was an assistant football coach with Gordy. Bernie and Gordy were supposed to go fishing this morning, right? And Gordy said, no, he had something more important to do. So I know this, for Gordy to pass up an opportunity to go fishing with Bernie, it has to be important. Leroy Hopkins Jr. graduated from McCaskey in 1961. He's a graduate of Millersville University with degrees in German and Russian. He has a PhD from Harvard. And since 1979, he has taught German at Millersville. He is currently chairman of Millersville's Foreign Languages Department. Dr. Hopkins has also served as acting executive director of the Urban League of Lancaster County. He has served on the boards of several local and state civic organizations, including the Pennsylvania Humanities Council, Lancaster 250, the Historical Society of Pennsylvania, Lancaster County Library. He is past president of the Lancaster County Historical Society. From 1977 to 1979, Dr. Hopkins served as chairman of the Pennsylvania delegation to the White House Conference on Libraries and Information Systems. He has served several terms on the Black History Advisory Committee of the Pennsylvania Historical and Museum Commission, and for the past 20 years he has researched and published information on local African American history. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Leroy Hopkins Jr., class of '61.
42 years ago, when I came to McCaskey, I never dreamt I'd be standing here. The reason I'm standing here is because of some teachers and some friends that I made at McCaskey. One of whom, not at McCaskey, but Dave Myers. Dave, stand up together. Dave and I went to Millersville together. He drove. It's a strange juxtaposition for me to be introduced after a sports hero. I never made a basket. I graduated from McCaskey without being able to swim. But there were reasons for that. Now I'm going to get serious. The Black History in Pennsylvania Conference just ended, and this is coming up in August. I don't know if you can see my tie. The Negro Baseball Leagues. How many of you are familiar with the Negro Baseball Leagues? That's more than would have been when I came here as a student. When I came to McCaskey in ¡58, there were no teachers who looked like me. There were very few of us who graduated in '61. There was exactly 12. The reason I didn't learn to swim is probably Nelson Polite's fault. In August of 1960, I was a part of a demonstration outside Rocky Springs Pool. All the pools in Lancaster were segregated at that time. When I graduated from McCaskey, the only job that was waiting for me, if I dared take it, was to sweep floors or run an elevator downtown. Things have changed. McCaskey has changed. I look out and I see a diverse student population. We didn't have that diversity then, and it was a huge loss for society. We're on the right track now. Everyone is a part of the experiment. Let me name a few teachers that I recall fondly. Miss Catherine Buckwalter. In Miss Buckwalter's class, she took no prisoners. She was a disciplinarian from the get-go. And you knew when you went into that class, you better be prepared or take the consequences. She was this tall. But everyone quaked in their boots when she called on them. But I learned a lot from Miss Buckwalter. I learned above all how to write and to be disciplined. Walter Kreider. He's not in my yearbook because I believe he left McCaskey in 1960. I had him for history class at Edward Hand. I had him here at McCaskey. And then when I went to Millersville, I had him there for the educational block. And then later I came back to Millersville and was a colleague of his. He instilled in me, actually amplified my love of history. I was lucky enough in the 8th grade to get the award for excellence in American history. And when I was here at McCaskey, I wasn't interested in the social sciences. If you look at the yearbook, my goal was to be a nuclear physicist. Well, thank God for world peace, I never achieved that goal. Mr. Daniel McGarry. Now, Mr. McGarry was a chemistry teacher, but I had him for 11th grade English. Composition. I have never learned more about writing than in his class. He had a simple principle that he applied. You learn by doing. Every week we had to write. We had to write an essay, and the one I remember most was coming in on a Wednesday morning. His class was from 11 to, I believe, 11:50. And he would raise the map, and there was our theme for the day. The theme was, fish like visitors smell in 3 days. And you had to hand in a completed essay that was clean. And then the final teacher that I want to recall, Jacob F. Hartranft. Now, Mr. Hartranft, I don't think he liked me. I'm sure he didn't like me. I remember one time in his German class, I had an average for that grade period of 96, and I thought, I got an A. I was almost never on the honor roll, but I thought this time I made it in one of the strange subjects in German. I go up front, we had a little student conference. He writes down 96 in writing, oral, 80, B. So I walked back to my seat and I thought, I'm crushed. But I persevered. My first year in German, I got all C's, but I got a B in the final. And he said, normally, I wouldn't invite you back for a second year, but since you got that B in the final, you can come back for the second year. After the second year of German, I never got anything below a B. I lived in Germany for 9 years. The unfortunate thing is that Mr. Hartranft died in the spring of my senior year. I would have loved to go back with a PhD in hand and say, Guten Tag. The final name that I want to mention is Edward Kraft. Mr. Kraft was, as was mentioned, the assistant principal here at McCaskey, but he was much more than that. In 1963, I had an opportunity to go to Germany. I had gone to Millersville. I only got there because of Dr. Edward Copper. Dr. Copper paid for my first semester at Millersville. I came from what we call working poor family. And I wish the IRS would believe that I came from that background after my last tax bill. But we had no money. My parents had no money. I got a job at the Brunswick as a busboy for all of 90 cents an hour to pay for my first semester. Dr. Copper paid for that semester, and so I could use my earnings to get me into the college. He paid all of $75 for tuition, and he also bought me a sweater, so I looked decent going to Millersville. But in '63, I had a chance to go to study at the Philipps-Universität Marburg an der Lahn. But I had no money. Mrs. Butcher, Reverend Louis Butcher's mother, organized a Leroy Hopkins Day. It was held at the Christmas Attics, and Mr. Kraft, although he didn't have to, was the MC of that program. And they raised $400. Now, $400 doesn't sound like much, but that was my spending money for a whole year in Germany. And because of that year in Germany, which was made possible by people that I knew from McCaskey, I was able to go finish my studies at Millersville and go off to Harvard and get the PhD in German. What did McCaskey mean to me? One thing it didn't mean to me, it didn't tell me who I was, but it gave me the tools to find out who I am. And you must take that also as an example. Pay attention in class. Don't take the easiest classes. If you want a recipe for success, listen to your elders. Listen to your teachers. Don't always listen to the person sitting next to you. Take the language. I'm a language teacher. I have to push language. Spanish is a useful language. German is even more useful. Russian is important. Japanese. Take the languages. They're not just academic exercises. People actually speak those languages, and there's a vast cultural heritage. And one of the things, and I'll close with that, is some years ago, my nephew invited me to go to his middle school. I won't say which one it was. And my nephew was in this class, and the teacher told me ahead of time that when you talk to them, be careful, they're all learning disabled. And then she introduced me by saying, this is Dr. Hopkins, he's from Millersville, and he'll talk to you about minority history. Now, all of you are minorities, and you'll feel good listening to him. And I thought, if I were a kid, I'd go, good. The first words that I said are the words I want to close with. Your teacher says that you're a minority, but in true fact, the majority of the world looks just like you. So join that majority. Black history is not just for blacks, it's for everyone. It's the true American story. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hopkins. And before we go on, I have received the official word that we can go over in our allotted time, so we're not going to be rushed. This is an important morning, especially. Also say that Dr. Hopkins, I was always a year behind you. Did you go to George Washington? Yes. I went to George Washington Elementary School, went next door to Edward Hand, junior high, just like Dr. Hopkins, and then came to McCaskey. And I remember Catherine Buckwalter well. I had her, and yes, she was a terror. And when it came time for you to recite, get up, and you would stand up, and of course I would stammer, and most of the time did not know the answer. And what was her favorite expression? Sit down and take an F. Right? sit down and take an F, just like that. And I'd leave her class and walk down the hall, and some of the guys would say, "Hey, Hux, what'd you get in Buckwalter's class?" Just shut up and keep moving. And before we go any further, Dr. Hopkins does have a guest this morning, his sister Janet Hopkins Warfel, class of 1967. Also, we want to give special thanks this morning to Matt DiMascola, class of 1995, and the McCaskey Graphic Arts Department for these fine programs this morning. Thank you, Matt. Ariel Rivera came to Lancaster when he was 6 years old. He went on to graduate from J.P. McCaskey High School in 1990, and then he went Ivy League. He went to Princeton University, where he graduated in 1994 with a degree in political science. He also received a certificate from the program in Latin American Studies. And while at Princeton, Ariel was co-captain of the club volleyball team. In 1996, he went to Penn State, where he earned a master's degree in business administration. He's employed by GTE Supply in Dallas, Texas, from Lancaster to Dallas. He's a supervisor of supply operations, and in his free time, Ariel serves the Latino community as a leader in his church's Royal Rangers program. In the past, he has provided physical, spiritual, and emotional and social guidance for teenage boys at the First Spanish Assembly of God Church in Lancaster. Ariel Rivera, class of 1990, and a member of McCaskey's distinguished alumni.
Morning. You know, when I was told that I was that I had been picked as a distinguished alumni, I sat there and I thought, I've only been out 10 years, not even 10 years, it'll be 10 years there next month in June. But I'm really, really, really honored to be here this morning. And I flew in from Dallas on Thursday, been down there a year and a half, and this was a nice way to get back and see my parents. I only see my parents about twice a year. And the funny story, I guess, this morning is that I did bring my girlfriend from Georgia up here to celebrate this moment with me. My girlfriend, Michelle Ayala, sitting in the front row. This morning, several of the speakers talked about McCaskey pride. And when they asked me to talk about what McCaskey meant to me as a student, what it means to me today, and I believe what it will mean to me in the future for the rest of my life, I always think of the pride that I had when I went here. I was here from about 87 through 1990, and we had amazing sports teams at McCaskey. Basketball, football, always in the playoffs. I remember one year we were in the playoffs and we were playing York High, and the game was at Lancaster Catholic High. And I remember after the game walking onto the field after the McCaskey victory and seeing the York players sitting on the bench, laying on the field, crying because they had lost this playoff game. And that's always stuck with me, because McCaskey's pride is not just about the high school. You're also representing Lancaster, you're representing your families, and I think that the sports teams here have always epitomized that, and I hope they always will. Another example of pride, and this was after I graduated. I went on to Princeton University, and I was sitting in my freshman composition class, and the professor asked us to do an exercise that I had done hundreds of times during my AP Comp class with Mr. Gray. And she asked us to read a passage and analyze it. And this was the very first essay that I wrote in college. and we handed it in the very next class, and we had to go in and see her one-on-one for our scores and for commentary on our analysis. And I think I chose to analyze the diction and the tone of the article that we read. And she sat me down and she said, how did you know to take two aspects of this writing and analyze that? And why didn't you write about what you thought it meant and what you thought the author meant and stuff like that? And I told her, well, I had a composition class in high school, and we were taught that you can't analyze the whole article. Pick one or two characteristics that you think pop out and analyze those, and don't worry about the rest of it. Just analyze those in depth rather than giving a gloss over to 50 million topics. And she was really impressed. And I felt that McCaskey pride, that here I was from a public high school in southeastern Pennsylvania, in a class full of students from prep schools, from New England, Connecticut, Massachusetts, all these bunch of rich kids for the most part. I was there on financial aid and lots of it, and a Latino student in a very predominantly white university. And here I was shining, and it all came back to the education that I'd gotten at my public high school in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And I felt so proud at that point. And throughout my experience at Princeton, same at Penn State when I went back for my MBA, in the corporate world, everywhere, I've been proud of the education that I've had. I've always been up to the task. And I have the teachers at McCaskey and Edward Han and George Washington Elementary to thank for that. And I hope that you realize the wealth that you have in your teachers. The teachers that are dedicated. I keep hearing about all these teachers retiring that I had, and when I listen to how many years they've taught in the school district in Lancaster, it just baffles me. I had teachers like Mr. Barrett for English, Mr. Gray, Mr. Piper for phys ed was one of the teachers that I think everyone in this school that's gone through and had Mr. Piper at one point in their time has hated him. But afterwards, that's probably one of the best teachers I've ever had because it teaches you respect. And so I thank the Alumni Association for this award, and I hope that you all realize the pride that every single McCaskey alum has, and that you carry that forward and try and make a name for yourself, but always remember where you came from. Thank you.
Thank you, Ariel. We have a George Washington Edward Han reunion up here on the stage, too. Ladies and gentlemen, if you would please join me in honoring the 2000 J.P. McCaskey High School Distinguished Alumni. And now, we have some closing remarks from Mr. Art Mann, President of the School Board of the School District of Lancaster and McCaskey Class of 1973. Art.
Good morning. Let's get organized here. Thank you, Dick, and thank you to the Alumni Office for once again giving me the opportunity to congratulate this year's class of distinguished alumni. It also gives me a chance to thank you, all of you here, the Alumni Office in particular, for helping me fulfill the promise we made here 1 year ago when we promised to light Ewell Field. We all did it, and we all deserve some congratulations for that. Mr. Kraft, I just wish we could have done it a couple of years earlier so that your teams could have had a chance to perform under the lights. This is the third year in a row that I've had the privilege to represent the Board of Directors at this event. And it's always great to come back here, to get on stage, to meet with fellow McCaskey alumni, and sometimes to catch the eye of a teacher or guidance counselor, and to glimpse that expression, that look, which says, you're the Vice President of the school board? How's that possible? How is it that the same guy that put ink in Lashinsky's Bunsen burner and hot-wired his Jacob's ladder could possibly be on the school board? The truth is, and I'm sure that our distinguished alumni would agree, that McCaskey has always had great teachers. In fact, the district has always had deeply committed staff who could inspire the average to become above average. For generations, McCaskey has educated vast numbers of doctors and lawyers, actors, professional athletes, entrepreneurs, diplomats, scientists, soldiers. The list is endless. And the heritage of outstanding achievement, which we celebrate today, is once again in strong hands. Superintendent Phillips, along with the entire staff, administration, support staff, and teachers, are once again reinventing public education, and in the process are putting J.P. McCaskey in this district back into the spotlight of educational achievement nationwide. Every day, this district strengthens what we have and adds what we need to regain our place among the best school districts in this country. In a few short weeks, many of you in the audience will graduate and become alumni of this great institution. At that moment, no matter where life takes you, you and your class will join the distinguished alumni honored today and the generations of classes which came before to forge a permanent bond. As part of the McCaskey family, you become part of the soul of this community. It is a responsibility and an honor which I hope you will all carry for the rest of your lives. On behalf of the entire Board of Directors of the School District of Lancaster, I want to again thank the Alumni Office and join with Mr. Staub and the entire McCaskey community in congratulating this year's distinguished alumni inductees. Thank you.
And I know that we have honored all these people up here. We've thanked probably everybody in the audience but 3 people, and that's good. But I do know that I probably speak for the people up here in saying that they appreciate the respect that you have given them this morning. And that is what McCaskey Pride is all about. So we would like to applaud you. And now, unlike Mr. Hawksworth, who could be a hero and say that you could be extended in the second period, I have the distinct, probably dishonor of saying you're all to report now to your second period class. Thank you very much.